If you're going to be doing DIY plumbing, there's a list of tools that you should have on hand. Plumbing is a trade with a lot of very specialized tools, so you don't need to have things, don't go out and buy things that you don't need yet. But there's a few tools that you should have on hand for case of emergencies, or just tools that you're going to be using all the time. They include wrenches, various different pliers, personal protective gear like knee pads for doing a lot of plumbing work, vinyl gloves, disposable gloves, various different picks and cutting tools such as a hacksaw, small hacksaw blade, and then depending on various different things you'll need to do, like if you're replacing faucets, it's good to have a faucet tool rather than a basin wrench. You're going to be working on water lines, then you're going to want to have some soldering equipment. And then there's a few things that'll just make your life easier, like having a tool bag that goes over your shoulders and a tool bucket with a bunch of pouches on them, things like that. So let's get into it. Tools for DIY plumbing projects. Whether you're a homeowner or a DIYer, you're going to need a whole bunch of tools for plumbing, depending on which type of project and how advanced you're going to get into it. DIY plumbing involves installing or repairing fixtures, installing or repairing water lines, drain pipes, and making connections on items like appliances like a washer or hoses under a sink, stuff like that. As usual, if you're going to be working on water lines or doing anything you're not really comfortable with, you should hire a professional. In this case, hire a licensed plumber. That way you don't flood your house. But in general, a homeowner is usually allowed to work on some of their plumbing, and it's a good idea to have a bunch of tools for that. So let's get into it. So first off, you're going to need a bunch of personal protective material. Save your knees. You're going to be on your knees a lot. May as well get a knee pad or like a foam pad like this. Put your knees on. This is good for working under cabinets. You're going to be installing things like a garbage disposal or fixing pipes. You might be on your back. I've used this to help to rest my head on, to put my lower back on, so really useful. May as well get a big box of these things. You're going to go through them a lot. Anytime you're working with caulk or wax seals or nasty pipes and toilets and things like that, you're going to want to have gloves. Pretty much any kind of plumbing, you're going to want disposable gloves. And obviously you'll just dispose them each time, so you may as well get a big box. Anytime you're working with power tools, earplugs, protect your ears. Dust mask, eye protection like goggles, especially if you're working on things overhead. You're cutting into drywall to get to a pipe, you're cutting into pipes overhead, you're going to have a lot of stuff falling down. That stuff can get in your eyes. Protect your eyes. Basics, I usually say to use a bag, a tool bag instead of a box. Although with plumbing, there's so many different tools and materials that I recommend just getting a large toolbox as well. Sections for all kinds of different washers. It's always good to have extra washers. These are for under the sink slip joint washers, nylon, rubber. I have some, they're called closet bolts, but they're for the toilet, water closet if you will. And various different flanges and gaskets and rubber seals, all kinds of things that you might need when you're fixing plumbing. And then obviously these will open up, show all different materials you'll need, like the Teflon tape, and the pipe cutter here, various different tools. This is basically an Allen wrench, but it's useful. It comes with a garbage waste disposal for underneath for turning the blade. They have pliers, all kinds of different pliers, wire brushes, picks, Q-tips. This is sandpaper, waterproof sandpaper, markers, reamers for when cutting copper pipe, when it has a little burr, so it deburrs it, and various different pliers. This one is for opening oil cans. It's actually really useful for the slip joint nuts hand tighten plus a little bit. Sometimes you need some kind of pliers to get them open. You also use adjustable pliers like these channel locks. These are really handy. And then of course it'll open up. I have various things that I use a lot. I have these are the smooth pliers. Pliers and wrenches are a pretty big part of the list. This is a strap wrench. This one came with a small one and a large one. These are really good for tightening things without scratching or denting or marring the surface. You might want to use this on something like a tub spout. I've used this on tailpipe extensions, chrome plated, where it was just one length of pipe, and you can tighten it by hand, but then you want to tighten it a little bit tighter. Use something like this. It's going to dent it or scratch it. So good to have these insulated screwdrivers for when working around electricity, like a garbage disposal. So it's plumbing appliance, works with electricity. You obviously want to test to see if your electricity is off whenever you're going to be working on it. Extra gloves, different size wire brushes, different size washers. These are extractors for getting stuck pipes out, stuck pieces out of pipes. This is a basin wrench, but I hate these things. They're hard to get up onto the nut. This is for working under a cabinet for a faucet. So you have the sink here, the wall here, so there isn't enough space to put a wrench up there. So you have to put this way up there and get this around the nut and then turn it, depending on which way. It goes either way for tightening or loosening. But instead of that, I like to use these faucet tools. They're so much easier. You just put this up there, the water line goes right in the middle, and then it tightens or loosens it, and this comes out. As you can see, I usually only use the one size, but it has different sizes, different parts for different. I've had one with a whole bunch of these extra ones. I've never had to use it. I think some of it could be for taking out shower drains, tub drains, things like that. But really useful. This one is a rigid. Definitely have a link for one of these in the description, but these are really handy to have. Much prefer that to a basin wrench. For tubs, you don't want to start getting all kinds of tools that you don't need. Obviously, your tool collection will grow as you need them. You don't need those things. I would recommend on a short list a faucet tool. Another handy thing, in addition to the box, there are these bucket covers that have all these pouches all around them. And that way you can put your basics in a tool bag over your shoulder. And whatever you're doing, just throw it in the bucket. You have something like a snake. Again, depending on what you need to do, but a snake is good to have on hand. A lot of these tools you might not need, like a strap wrench and whatnot, but there's a basic list of tools that you'll need on hand just to have. You may already have a hacksaw, so if you're going to be working on PVC pipes, a hacksaw, this small one has come in handy a lot. This is just that the smaller one can get into tighter spaces. I haven't used this one yet, but this is a hand saw for PVC pipes. All kinds of different gaskets and washers and stuff on hand, but you'll start collecting these anyway as you start getting. I mean, the basics would be adjustable wrenches, channel lock, pliers, something to cut pipes with, like a hacksaw. You're probably not going to be doing soldering as a basic DIY project, but if you are, I recommend using a good pipe cutter and deburr to get the burr out, and then learning how to use a propane torch to solder rather than using propane shark bites. Because what they are, this is inside, there are 2 of these inside of each ProPress fitting. These things, like rubber rings on my whole house washer, or whole house water filter, will eventually rot. They don't last forever, and then you need to replace them. This is not a problem if you start to see a leak at my filter, because then I can just take it off and then replace it. But what happens if these are in ProPress fittings behind your wall? These things are going to fail, and then when they do, you're not going to get a refund for what you paid the plumber, who also did not pass the cost savings on to you when he used these to save labor costs. And then when it starts leaking, and then you get the plumber back 10 years later, 15 maybe, not only are you not going to get a refund for these failing ProPress fittings, but you're going to have to get them all replaced, and by then the price for the plumbing repairs will have quadrupled. So you may as well just solder your connections. It's good to have a bunch of soldering parts. I just use a regular lighter. I don't mess around with those flint things. They never seem to work for me. Use a regular lighter. Light up, use flux. Use a decent amount of flux. Solder it, practice it. Watch for leaks, cut it out, redo it if it does leak. So other than that, you'll be needing materials. I like to use this pipe dope, white pipe dope, rather than Teflon tape. Usually you can use the pipe dope instead of the tape. It's always good to have clear 100% silicone on hand, and then all-purpose cement for PVC pipe repairs. Bonus, if you have a gas appliances, it's good to get one of these things. You turn it on, it heats up in about 10 seconds. Turn it on in a room where you don't think there's a leak, and then put this up to the gas fittings and connections. It'll light up if there's a leak. I've used this and I've actually spotted leaks with it. Obviously you don't want to work on the gas line yourself, but if you see a leak, then you can call the plumber to come in. If you don't have galvanized pipes, you probably don't really need pipe wrenches. Most of the wrenches that you'll need are for the hex couplings and fittings, like the nuts underneath the faucet. Scraping tools and picks are really handy to have. They have them with these the rubber grips. These are good for scraping out things from threads, scraping out and picking off O-rings and washers and things like that. So these are really handy to have. You may want to have a sawzall. This is a reciprocating saw. If you're going to be cutting into PVC pipes up in the ceiling or something, or doing a lot of them and you don't want to do them by hand, it comes with these. These fine tooth blades are good for PVC, but these can also cut wood, even wood with nails in them, depending on what you're going to be cutting into. Probably have a bunch of them on hand. That about does it for my list of tools that you should have as a DIYer for plumbing tasks. So let me know if I missed any, and thanks for watching.